Namo Buddhaya. Good afternoon again to all, and welcome to the last day of our Death Awareness Month for Dhammadharini. We've come to the end, last day of November, which we celebrate as Death Awareness Month each year for Dhammadharini. And so we're going to have just a few more suttas touching on the theme of death, continuing the theme from last week of teachings for the time of death. There are several suttas where the Buddha or one of his disciples went to somebody who was either very ill or on their deathbed and gave them some advice. We're going to go through a few more of those suttas today, thinking that may be relevant for us at some point. We're all going to die, and we all, we hope that we have the time and the clarity of mind to be able to make good use of the Buddha's advice when that time comes. So we should at least know what the advice is. And then I would like to invite, after that, if anyone has time and would like to stay on the Zoom, we're going to have some closing chanting for our Death Awareness Month. We've put up some photos in our meditation hall of our own departed relatives and loved ones, and we're going to do some funeral chanting for them and some blessing chanting just to sort of close out this month. So after the Sutta study, welcome to stay on the Zoom and join us for that if you wish to. And if you'd like to share any photos also, you still have a chance to email those to us or put them in the chat or something like that, to include your own loved ones as well. But that will be at the end. For now, let's go to our first sutta of the day. Let me put this on the screen. All right. So this is the Gilana Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 55-54. And we'll just dive in. Gilana means sick. At one time, the Buddha was staying in the land of the Sakyans near Kapilavatthu in the Banyan Tree Monastery. So this is actually his homeland, the city that he departed from when he renounced and gave up the palace and all of that was in Kapilavatthu. So he's at home here, or staying near his home. At that time, several mendicants were making a robe for the Buddha, thinking that when his robe was finished and the 3 months of the rain's residence had passed, the Buddha would set out wandering. So this is the tradition for the monastics, that they stay in place for 3 months of the year during the rainy season in India, the monsoon season. And then after that time, they're supposed to go out and wander. And we do also, right after the rains is the robe season, the time for sewing a robe and preparing it. And so that people, it's the one time of year where the monastics stay in one place long enough that they can focus on sewing a robe together. And so the monastics are sewing this robe. And Mahanama the Shakyan heard about this. The Mahanama he's a layperson. He's the Buddha's cousin. And he took over as a minister in the capital there after the Buddha left. He's an administrator, some sort of official in the kingdom of the Shakyans. Actually, sorry, it's not a kingdom, it's a republic. But anyway, he's an official there. And he's the Buddha's cousin, and he's a very faithful lay person. And he has heard that they're making this robe and the Buddha's going to be leaving soon. And he feels like he needs some advice before the Buddha goes. So the Mahanama, the Shakyan, heard about this. Then he went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and told him that he had heard the Buddha was leaving. And he said, "Sir, I haven't heard it and learned it in the presence of the Buddha, how a wise lay follower should advise another wise lay follower who is sick, suffering, gravely ill." So doesn't say here why is he concerned about this. If there might have been a particular person who he was thinking of, or just in general. He was thinking ahead to the fact that all of us are going to get sick, and that we are connected with each other, that we do need to be compassionate with each other, that we need to know what to say, what to do when these moments come, because they will come when somebody around us gets sick or we get sick. So anyway, I'm not sure why specifically, but this was his burning question for the Buddha. Before the Buddha leaves, he wants to know how a wise lay follower should advise another wise lay follower who is sick, suffering, gravely ill. So the Buddha says, Mahanama, a wise lay follower should put at ease another wise lay follower who is sick, suffering, gravely ill, with 4 consolations. He should say, be at ease, sir. You have experiential confidence in the Buddha. You have experiential confidence in the Dhamma, the teaching. You have experiential confidence in the Sangha. And you have the ethical conduct loved by the noble ones, leading to immersion. So these 4 qualities, experiential confidence or faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and ethical conduct loved by the noble ones, these are 4 factors of stream entry, actually, when the Buddha is speaking about a wise lay follower here. Excuse me, just a moment. That's my computer going off. Let me stop that. Just a moment. All right, sorry about that. Anyway, these are the 4 factors of stream entry. So a wise lay follower in this case means one who is actually a stream enterer, is what the Buddha is talking about. And these 4 consolations are for such a person in particular, that they know for sure that the Buddha is awakened. They know for sure that the teaching is available and effective because it's been effective for them. And they know for sure that the Sangha of awakened ones exists in the world because they've actually seen for themselves the effectiveness of the teaching, and they have had some degree of awakening for themselves. So that is the greatest consolation. And also knowing on the basis of that they have ethical conduct. That's virtue, at least up to the 5 precepts, and if not more. And on the basis of that, then they can have the confidence that at least they're not going in any bad direction as they pass away, that they've done good, that they're on the track and not going to fall off. So, this is a bit of a high bar, and those of us who are not stream enterers yet are, people who are not stream enterers yet, this may or may not be a consolation. But I think it's still pointing at what are the points of real safety in the world? What are the things that you can rely on at the time of death? Even if you don't yourself have yet experiential confidence in the Buddha, that means you haven't experienced stream entry yourself. But still, some degree of faith may be there. You may have gone for refuge. You may be coming to hear the words of the Buddha, to hear the teaching, to see the Sangha. You have some degree of faith, or you wouldn't be on this Zoom right now, probably. Something drew you here. And to whatever extent that you have developed ethical conduct, that also is a place of safety for you and for others. And so then I guess the first piece of advice would be to develop these things. Of course, to develop the path so that you realize stream entry is the best. But even without that, still to be developing your faith, to developing the sense of refuge, and to developing in ethical behavior. These are things that you can rely on and know that they're a safe place to rest, even in the face of death or illness. So those are 4 consolations. To whatever extent you have realized them or developed them, these are things to rely on and think about at the time of death, going for refuge and rejoicing in your own ethical conduct, to whatever extent you've developed that. All right. Well, let's pause here, actually. Are there any questions or comments at this point before we go on to the next section? No? All right, then we'll go on. So first thing is, Richard, yes?
Thank you, Aya. To go back to that section just before that, no, up a little bit.
More?
Down, I mean down. Sorry, I meant praise the screen. It's like a comedy sketch. Says, and you have ethical conduct loved by the noble ones leading to immersion. The Buddha says that anyone who's not a arahant can break the precepts. So that's one of the reasons why I always stress that the first precept is not just killing, it means harming of any kind. So an air-breathing being. So that's what it means. Like someone who's a non-returner, they're not going to kill anyone, but they may still have some small amount of upset or something, very mild. They may rebuke somebody in an unfair way or something like that. So, but the point I want to make here, though, is that don't set the bar for yourself too high by thinking that if I can't follow the precepts absolutely perfectly every second, you know what I mean? Then I haven't attained Sotapan, which is not true, because any of the first noble people can break one of the precepts. The only thing is that for monastics, if you were to break certain ones of those precepts, I'm not sure if it's all of them, but certain ones, you would have to leave the monastic life. Other than that, so the householders, laity, it's not. What this really means here is that the precepts themselves are unbroken. They're perfect, but like whole cloth. They're not a patchwork of different things stuck together. They actually interrelate with each other like whole cloth, and that's kind of what it means by when you see. Sometimes you'll see it translated as unbroken. I think there's more to the Pali here they're leaving out, right. But it'll say like unbroken. It just means that they all, just like cloth and all of its threads go together. It's not pieces sewn together. It all goes together in that way. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, absolutely. It does not mean perfection in the precepts. A stream enterer can still break precepts. My understanding, though, is that the stream enterer, if they do break a precept, as soon as they realize, they will do what they can to make amends because they know the danger in it. They won't sweep it under the rug. They won't pretend it didn't happen. They will sort of look at that and be like, oh, I need to fix something here if they've seen that they've broken it. Yeah, and for monastics, we don't have to disrobe just for any possible offense. Bhikkhunis, we have 311, and if we had to disrobe for every one of them, there wouldn't be a lot of bhikkhunis left in the world. But there's different levels of severity. There are 4 or 8 that you would have to disrobe if you were to break one of those precepts. And then the others, there's less drastic ways of resolving them and remaining in monastic life. So just to clarify that. But yes, if one was a stream enterer and a monastic, then you'd want to go clear up one of those smaller precepts as soon as possible. And monastic life is wonderful in that we have mechanisms to do that. We have procedures for clearing up faults when they do occur. And that's our training, is to see things and then just sort of take care of them as soon as we can. So thank you, Richard, for clarifying that. Anyway, carrying on. So first thing, I think Mahanama here is a stream enterer. We know from other suttas that he is a stream enterer at this point. So this is a consolation for him and for others who are. But I think for any faithful person who's doing their best to follow the teachings of the Buddha, that's something that gives a consolation, is that you have tried your best, that you have some degree of faith, and that's something you can rely on such a time. Anyway, when a wise lay follower has put at ease another wise lay follower who are sick, suffering, gravely ill with these 4 consolations, after that, they should say, "Are you concerned for your mother and father?" Again, this is somebody sick, maybe on their deathbed. If they reply, "I am," then you should say, "But sir, it's your nature to die. Whether or not you are concerned for your mother and father, you will die anyway. It would be good to give up concern for your mother and father." So, and I don't think this means that you shouldn't care about your mother and father. Get that out of the way. You should still care about them, but it's just like whether or not you are concerned, it doesn't matter at this point. You will pass away in any case. Richard, yes, comment?
Thank you. Yeah, keep in mind that it says a wise householder to another wise householder. It means a sotapan to another sotapan or higher, whatever. So this is not normal advice that you would give to just an ordinary person or a person, who has not attained stream entry, because they probably take it as very offensive or something. If you start to, "Oh, don't worry about your father, you're all going to die anyway," they probably wouldn't appreciate that too much. So that's why he makes that qualification there in the beginning. I just want to emphasize that, because sometimes we hear things and okay, that's when then some friend is sick or something, we start admonishing them in the wrong way. It's not really proper. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Yes, no, it's true. And so these are things that I'm presenting to you at the end of Death Awareness Month. Hopefully you've kind of been softened up and ready to hear things like this by now. And yes, it's true that you don't, that what is consoling to one person is not going to be consoling to another person necessarily. It depends on their conditioning. It depends on, are they primed for the idea that these things are impermanent, mother and father being impermanent? Are they ready for hearing that and facing that? And again, hopefully those who have been following the teachings of the Buddha, to whatever degree they have, who have been considering this reality of death, hopefully this is something that they will be able to hear and understand. It's like, there's only so much you can do for your family, for your parents, for your loved ones. There's a limit, and that limit comes with the end of life. At that point, there's nothing more to be done. And the equanimity is just to know that clearly, that at a certain point, it doesn't help to be concerned, because you're going anyway. So you do what you can and then stop. That's really all. So anyway, you tell this wise person who is a follower of the Buddha, who knows some of this already, you remind them, you will die anyway. It would be good to give up concern for your mother and father. If they reply, "I have given up concern for my mother and father," then what? Next, "Are you concerned for your partners and children?" If they reply, "I am," you should say, "But sir, it's your nature to die. Whether or not you are concerned for your partners and children, you will die anyway. It would be good to give up concern for your partners and children." And yes, absolutely. Same caveat as what Richard said a moment ago for this one. that you want to be saying this to somebody who does have some familiarity with the wisdom teachings of the Buddha, for them to be able to understand where this is coming from, that this is just the truth of things, but it's meant to be sort of a liberating truth. It would be good to give up concern at this point for your partners and children, because there is this limit what you can do for them, and to try to, just to worry, just concern in itself at this time is not helpful actually to you or to them. And if just for all of you, best if you can acknowledge truly how it is. If they reply, I have given up concern for my partners and children, they should say, but are you concerned for the 5 kinds of human sensual stimulation? Now, in a way, this one is a little funny because, we think the care for the family, or, the partners, the children, the mother, the father, but of course, those are more important than sensual stimulation, right? Of course, we care more for our families than for mere sense pleasures, right? So then why is this coming after giving up concern for the family? I don't know. I have an answer to that, but I'm curious if any of you have thoughts about this before I give my answer. Yes, Elaine, please.
Does that mean our own comfort and well-being? I also had something that I wanted to add about breaking precepts. Is it breaking a precept if you have chicken soup, if somebody's made you chicken soup, and like, I'm wondering the degrees, right? Soon a Kaccayana Bhikkhuni and I will be participating in the twice monthly confession, and I thought, oh, this is really going to take me to another level, right? So yeah, about breaking precepts. So that's kind of our own comfort too. It does tie in a little bit with that. So thank you, Aya.
Yeah, well, I certainly agree with you about the thing of this is our comfort, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But just quickly about your question about the precepts, the way that it is traditionally interpreted, at least in Theravada Buddhism, is that if you have not gone out and killed the chicken yourself, or if it's not something that they killed specifically for you, then that's a different kind of karma than if you had done that. If it's just what is available in the market, then to eat that is different than to eat what you have killed yourself. So it is recommended not to kill yourself, to kill a chicken yourself, or to encourage anyone else to do so. But the tradition is not strictly vegetarian, and the Buddha also was not strictly vegetarian. And he actually, there was one of his disciples who advocated strongly for vegetarianism, and the Buddha said, actually, no, I'm not going to require that for my Sangha. And so, but I know also there are other Buddhist traditions, especially in the Mahayana, that are strictly vegetarian, and there are reasons for that. And even beyond what the Buddha said, I think our ethical situation with regard to food production and meat production in particular is different today than it was in the time of the Buddha. And there are debates to be had about that, just the whole factory farming and everything. So anyway, it's not, in a traditional interpretation, it's not something that you would need to confess unless you went and killed the chicken yourself. But it is very much open to your own sort of sense of discernment about it, and how far and how you want to hold that precept. Yeah.
I am a vegetarian 99% of the time, but I do have a digestive disorder. we're not getting enough nutrients. So yeah, I thought, okay, that one, a couple of times a month I have fish or something, a chicken broth or something. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. All right. Daniel, you had a hand up earlier.
Yes, I was just giving my guess in terms of what the answer was, which is it seems to me that they're moving from the more gross to the more subtle. So there's, something very concrete, right? Your parents or your family members, to now something more subtle where human central stimulation can be a lot of different things and can be quite subtle depending. But that was just my guess at that question.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point actually, is that in a way it seems counterintuitive. You start with the biggest attachment first and then go to smaller ones. But it's true that it is sort of more subtle. I think there's also truth to what Elaine was saying, though, is that this is like, it's not just like entertainment and luxury. It's also just sort of the sort of being comfortable at all in the body, right? There's that level of just having any kind of comfort in the body, having, not being hungry, not being cold, not being in pain. These, in a way, we could consider part of our sensual stimulation. And yes, we are concerned with that. It's very hard to not be concerned with that. Everything, I came on one time pointed out, like if you look around the room and look at all the things in the room that are for the body, just it's like 98% of the things that we own are just for the comfort of the body, right? And we spend so much of our time just on the comfort of the body and keeping it going, keeping it fed, keeping it warm, keeping it rested, all of this. And yeah, if you spend so much of your time just sort of keeping the body going and then suddenly the body is sick and in pain and failing, then of course you would have concern about that. So there's the grosser and more subtle is within this same range of what's meant by human sensual stimulation. There's the gross level of just like avoiding terrible pain. And there's also the more subtle level of whatever is, genuinely pleasant and sort of above and beyond in terms of comfort and happiness and entertainment and, deliciousness and all of this, right? So I think there's a big range in what he's talking about here in the 5 kinds of human sensual stimulation. Anyway, so the wise lay follower is supposed to ask the other wise lay follower about this. So are you concerned for the 5 kinds of human sensual stimulation? If they reply, I am, then they should say, good fellow, heavenly sensual pleasures are better than human sensual pleasures. It would be good to turn your mind away from human sensual pleasures and focus it on the gods of the 4 great kings. So, yeah, this one is a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit funny to me. I guess if you have faith in the devas, in the gods, in these realms of heaven, there are those in the world who are better educated than me in the different realms of, there are different cosmological realms in Buddhist teachings, and they can tell you all the different delights that you can have in all the different heavenly realms. And right, I think it is true that we're going from the gross to the subtle here, as Daniel was saying, because he says, if they reply that I've turned the mind away from human sensual pleasures and towards the gods of the 4 great kings, then gives him higher and higher heavenly realms to consider. If they reply, I have done so, they should say, good fellow, the gods of the 33 are better than the gods of the 4 great kings. The gods of Yama, the joyful gods, the gods who love to create, the gods who control what is created by others, and the gods of the realm of divinity are better than the gods who control what is created by others. So they're going up the levels. There are these traditional descriptions of all these different realms and different kinds of gods, and we're going in order here from the lowest up to the highest. The realm of divinity is, you're in the realm of Brahma, the great Brahma, the creator god in the pantheon of what was understood at that, at the Buddha's time and place. And in each case, he says, it would be good to turn your mind away from the gods who control what is created by others and focus it on the gods of the realm of divinity. So to think, whatever there is in this human life, it's actually not the best. There's better out there. You can go up these realms. You can go somewhere better. And it's true that once you've had like a experience of some really, really good food or really amazingly beautiful music or something, then if you go back to some kind of junk food or some kind of cheap, quick pop song on the radio, it doesn't have the same satisfaction if you have had an experience of something more subtle and more wonderful in that way, right? We can still enjoy the pop song and the Cheetos or whatever, but you know that there's something better out there, that there's something higher out there, and can sort of change the way that you interact with the world if you know that. What kind of things are you seeking out in your life? And so then here saying there's better than this human life. There's better than what you can find here. There's places with less pain and more joy. And those are available, those are accessible through your virtuous behavior, through your generosity. These things are available to you. All the way up to the top, up to the realm of divinity. In the realm of divinity, so this is Brahma, this is like the Brahma Viharas that the Buddha taught, these divine abidings of Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekkha, the four Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes, these very purified, beautiful, bright, shining emotions that we can cultivate and develop. And the Buddha taught how to do this in a way that really purifies the mind, makes it beautiful, like the mind of a god, like the mind of a very high, compassionate, beautiful God, the mind of Brahma. We can develop that. And anyone who has developed that, which I think a number of you have at least heard some teachings on that, because I've seen you here when we've given those, and probably other places too. You've developed these to some degree. And if you've experienced that mind, like, wow, what a wonderful mind. The mind that is in some way liberated, to some degree, freed, even if not totally, by these sort of mind states that Brahma would have. So the Buddha is saying, you can encourage people. It's possible to have those mind states. Possible. And turn your mind away from all the other less pleasant pleasures, the only slightly pleasant pleasures, and go to what is highest and best here. Turn your mind away from the gods who control what is created by others and focus on the gods of the realm of divinity. So if they say they've done so they've given up concern for parents, concern for partners and children, concern for the needs of the body, and even they've given up these very high states of joy and bliss, then they should say, good fellow, the realm of divinity is impermanent, not lasting, and included within substantial reality. It would be good to turn your mind away from the realm of divinity and apply it to the cessation of substantial reality. So this is Kaccayana Sakkaya, included in individuated existence, embodied in an individual identity, is pointing towards not self, towards giving up any sense of identity. This is one of the fetters that the stream enterer actually already has given up. They've given up Sakkaya Ditthi, the view of a self, the view of having an individual, lasting, stable identity. They've given that up already. And now the Buddha is saying, well, even these higher things, even the Brahma Viharas, these divine realms, divine abodes, they're part of that. They're not lasting either. Can't make an identity out of them either. And it would be good, because of that, to turn your mind away from the realm of divinity and apply it to the cessation of substantial reality. If they reply, I have done so, then there is no difference between a lay follower whose mind is freed in this way and a mendicant whose mind is freed from defilements. That is, between the freedom of one and the other. And that's the end. So this is a path for one wise lay follower to lead another wise lay follower, even up to the full ending of defilements, at the time of death, at the time of sickness, at the time of being able to see clearly. Like, this possibility emerges, I think. All of these steps, they're hard to give up. It's hard to give up parents. It's hard to give up partners and children. It's hard to give up sensual pleasures of lower sorts and higher sorts and be freed in this way, and then to turn away from substantial reality entirely. But Buddha is saying you can do this. You can advise someone in this way. You can lead them onward. And there is no difference between a lay follower whose mind is freed in this way and a mendicant whose mind is freed from defilements, between the freedom of one and the other. This is the highest, most helpful thing that you can do for someone who's sick, who's on the verge of passing away, would be to help them in this way, to point out the way to go. Are there any comments at this point? Questions? Chintana, yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this. For in today's age, would it be fair to say that the gods, lower G, or things like social media, alcohol, drugs, could you almost use that instead of the gods that they're talking about?
Well, I mean, certainly those provide a kind of sensual pleasure that may be similar to what one of these sorts of gods could experience. It's true, like drugs, they provide a temporary and unsafe kind of very high sensual pleasure. And some of these other things do too. So it's true, you could have a temporary experience that is similar to something in a Deva realm through one of these things, potentially. Yeah, it's talking more about the mind state of experiencing sensual pleasure. I'm not sure that I would say that those things themselves are the gods, but the mind state that you could experience through drugs might be something similar to what one of those lower levels of gods might experience, although it's coming from a different source. Usually, birth in the Deva realms is usually through virtue, as opposed to drug use. But it's true that the reason that people seek out drugs is that they do provide sensual pleasure, that they do provide something that seems like stepping out of their normal daily life, normal sense of what is possible. And for someone in one of these Deva realms, it would be more stable and not disrupting their lives the rest of the time. right?
Right.
It wouldn't have the downsides that drugs do. But yeah, there may be some overlap in that experience. It's true.
All right. Thank you for answering that question.
Mhm. Yeah. Daniel?
Thank you. One thing that I don't know if this was in a sutta or if I read it, uh, heard it from a bhikkhuni or something like that. So I can't help with the source, but I think it stands pretty well, and that is kind of the notion that when contemplating like sensual pleasures in the human realm, right, and then trying to seek attachment from them, to remember that even a human being in the human realm that has experienced, incredible sensual pleasure, maybe they're extremely wealthy and have access to all kinds of experiences, that us folk don't, that even the lowest of the devas look upon people like that with a sense of pity because their experience is so much greater, and
Mm-hmm.
they feel a little bad for them that oof, they got to live like that. And I've enjoyed that as a way of kind of putting our own experiences here in perspective in terms
Mhm.
of the pleasure they create. So
Yeah, absolutely. You even think about just in the human realm, looking at the way that most of us are, at least on this call, are living today compared to how the royalty might have lived a couple centuries ago. They didn't have central heating. They didn't have access to avocados in December. Um, this kind of thing that we take for granted, that we have this global market and we can get our fresh whatever all year round. And we have our heat and our medical care and our dental care and our, all these things that we take for granted. We can hop in a car and be 60 miles away in an hour, it's amazing. And we might pity somebody from the past who didn't have that, but also it doesn't necessarily make us happy, right? um, People can have all of those things, and then you try to take them away, and you're, oh, that would be awful. I can't imagine my life without that. But we don't necessarily think, oh, we're so luxurious and so wealthy. We don't necessarily feel wealthy and luxurious when we have those things. So yeah, I feel like the Deva realm is sort of an extension of that. Like once you're there, you would not want to come back to this realm, definitely. But also you wouldn't necessarily think that, it would just seem normal, right? Normal to have all of that. And feel like there's something wrong if you don't, something very disappointing. So yeah, no, it's a good point. Thank you. Richard, yes?
Thank you. If you notice here, there are 7 levels of heaven described, if you count them. So what I'm about to say will be considered controversial, but a Sotapan does not take rebirth again as a human being, but it's possible to take rebirth consecutively in the 7 heavens. And that's why Buddha says up to 7 times. Now you can jump, you can jump levels or whatever, or you can go straight to Brahmaloka, okay? But depending how advanced you are. But this is the 7 various possible rebirths as you go along. Now, this is in the realm of diversity. That other section that then they go, oh, but how about give up the kaya, whatever, the bodily form.
Sakkaya.
That means that you're going to the formless realm, all right? And because they don't mention anything beyond that formless realm, because they're not arahants. If they were arahants, they wouldn't still be living as householders. However, it is possible at just before the time of death, or at the time of death, or slightly thereafter. Buddha gives a whole series of events, just before landing, whatever, or after landing, whatever, that one's mind if one has reached already non-returner and is going to the realm, the formless realm, that one could, just by that experience of death and then penetrating your mind and seeing it so clearly, one can make that final jump and become an arahant. But that's why it stops at that level, because right now they've not reached that stage that would allow them to go beyond that. So he's just saying, hey, you can go here, you can go there. In this present state of mind, you can go here, you can go there, you can go there, like that. But if you go to the formless realm, that means you're a non-returner. So you could, at that time, have at least that much transition of mind and go, let go of all these ideas of these heavenly realms and go up to that formless realm like that. I know there's some suttas where they talk about, oh, if you want, you can take birth as a Kshatriya, I think is the more Sanskrit way of saying it, or as a business person or farmer or something, or whatever like that. But if you see those suttas, they'll start with what was considered the higher one, the military person, and they'll go to the Brahmin, then they'll go to the farmer type person, right? In that order. But then when they transition to the heavens, then they go up.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that was probably something someone stuck in a commentary that eventually somehow migrated into the sutta, because it's not following the pattern. If they were really following the pattern of going up, 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 you'd say, okay, you become a farmer or a businessman, or then a Brahmin, then a Kshatriya, and you move up. Now, we can see King Bimbisara was a Sotapan, and he went to the heaven of the four great kings and became sort of an assistant to one of the, I don't remember which one of the gods, but he became an assistant to the god. But then he came and visited the Buddha and, got some more teaching and everything. So, it is possible as a Sotapan, that you just go to that first heaven to start. Even someone like Bimbisara, who was like a major king and everything in this world, right? He only went that far initially.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, some of that's just my view, but it's something to contemplate, think about. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. No, it's a good point about the going up, and also that this may be referring to the formless realms at the end. My understanding is that a Sotapan can be reborn as a human. They can't go lower, but that human birth is included in the possibilities, as I learned it. And yeah, also there are cases.
Excuse me for 1 minute. I didn't add the important point. When you attain Sotapan, you cannot forget. If you take birth as a human, you forget everything. Even the Buddha came into this world. There's some stories, mythology about the Buddha, where he kind of knew everything, as he's going along, and he's going to become a Buddha. But in the actual suttas, he doesn't say anything like that. He actually says he became a Buddha almost by accident. It's like a blind turtle, surfacing every 100 years, and then sticks its head through a gourd in a giant ocean, So it's just almost by just luck, just kind of being in the right place at the right time, the right type of animal, as the turtle, So if you take birth as a human, you're going to forget, But the Buddha says, no, once you become a Sotapan, you never forget, So that's why, it's my personal conclusion, but based on my study and everything in the suttas, that's why I saw this pattern of, there's 7 heavens. And Buddha talks about, and there are suttas where he says the Sotapans are going to go to the heavens. He doesn't say they're going to come back and take rebirth. There are other suttas where it's kind of included in a list, but it's not the same as when he specifically says, no, the Sotapans are going to go to heaven. And actually, that's one of the reasons why he says you should become a Sotapan, because at least you'll get beyond this level of misery, which is really miserable, And so, you get a little subtler. And he says from there in the heavens, you'll meet the other Buddhists and other people you used to know who are Buddhists and stuff, and you'll learn more of the Dharma, and you'll progress onward from there. Anyways, again, you can accept or reject if you see fit, but that's my view. Thank you.
All right. Well, Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I do actually want to move on to our next sutta. So this one is gives us sort of one view, like an outer, I don't know, an overview of how one could practice at the time of death, and have that be productive and onward leading on the path. And I want to go to another sutta, which gives, I think, a little bit more specific, sort of actionable advice about this. So I'm going to move on to the next sutta at this point. And this is the advice to Anathapindika. Again, Anathapindika is a lay disciple of the Buddha. He's known as a great supporter. He's the one who gave the Jeta's Grove Monastery at Savatthi, where the Buddha sent how many is it, 20 or 25 of his vasas after his awakening. He spent teaching there. It's a great center, the greatest sort of monastery of his time. He spent so much time teaching, and so many suttas were taught there. And Anathapindika was the one who had offered that space for the Sangha. So this is at the time of Anathapindika's death. He had been a faithful supporter of the Buddha for many years. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Now at that time, the householder Anathapindika was sick, suffering, gravely ill. Then he addressed a man, "Please, worthy man, go to the Buddha and in my name bow with your head to his feet. Say to him, 'Sir, the householder Anathapindika is sick, suffering, gravely ill. He bows with your head to your feet.' Then go to Venerable Sariputta and in my name bow with your head to his feet. Say to him, 'Sir, the householder Anathapindika is sick, suffering, gravely ill. He bows with your head to his feet.' And then say, 'Sir, please visit him at his home out of sympathy.' So Anathapindika is sick, and his concern is first that he wants to pay his respects to the Buddha. That's number one. Number two, he wants to pay his respects to Venerable Sariputta, who is the Buddha's right-hand man, the foremost in wisdom among his disciples. And he asks Venerable Sariputta to please visit. Please come see me. I'm sick. I need help. And this is part of the duties of monastics, is that we should, if somebody says, please come at the time of sickness, we should go, and we should do what we can to help. So Anathapindika is asking. "Yes, sir," that man replied, and he did as Anathapindika asked. And the Venerable Sariputta consented with silence. Daniel, question?
Yes, I actually, this is one thing I've always wondered about, and maybe it's just like a cultural predilection, and maybe you don't know, but consented by silence shows up a lot in the suttas, which of course, to my modern ears, seems incredibly rude for someone to say, "Please come to my house and help me," and you don't say anything. But obviously, in that context, somehow not saying anything meant yes, and I guess it's just a little cultural difference, or okay. Got it.
Yeah, it is a cultural difference, and it's something that so in monastic life, this is also something that we train with, that formal decisions of the Sangha are made through consent with silence, but it's something that we have to get used to, especially, for me growing up in US culture. Of course, this is not intuitive. But it is how Sangha decisions are made. For a Sangha Kama, a formal act of the Sangha, then you have somebody who is like announcing. They're saying, "Here is the motion, let's do this." And then they say, "Whoever agrees to doing this, let them be silent. Whoever doesn't agree, let them speak." And then for a big important formal act of the Sangha, then they say that 3 times. Whoever agrees, let them be silent. Whoever doesn't agree, let them speak. And if they're silent 3 times in a row, when that announcement is made, then then the person who's leading the formal act of the Sangha says, "Okay, the Sangha is silent. The Sangha agrees, therefore they're silent. so I will remember it. And that's like the stamp of approval, is that nobody has raised an objection. And in that case, it's pretty clear because, you know, they very explicitly gave you 3 chances to say no, and they didn't. But that's, you know, for a big serious Sangha you do like that. For a less serious one, maybe there's only one announcement. And then it seems like there's also this cultural thing of just, you know, if you wanted to object, you would say so. You have to like positively speak up if you don't agree to something. And yeah, it's just a cultural difference, really, and something we have to work with. So for our Sangha, for instance, like when we have a formal act of the Sangha with Pali chanting and everything, then we do it this way. But when we have, you know, a less formal community meeting and we need to make a decision about something, then usually we make sure that people go around and like say yes, because that's our culture for Americans, that it feels weird. You want to make sure that everybody really has their chance. So yeah,
Thank you.
it's a good question. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Janaki, yes, please.
Yeah. I would like to say about something about the culture. Actually speaking, in Buddhism or Buddhist teachings, the traditions, culture, such things do not exist. And the other thing is, almost all what we read nowadays are all translated to some other languages. And English is a very young, very young language, only about 1,500 years old. But the Pali is a very old language, and it existed at a time in CBE, before the Common Era. So I think if someone wants to understand the suttas better, I think it is better to read them in Pali language so that you can get the essence and the correct meaning, and then it is easier to understand. All these things can happen happen in translations, because translations are done by the people who know that language, but not Pali necessarily, not in the best way. So anybody can make mistakes. So then there could be misunderstandings. Even I myself had come across issues like that. So I had discussed with Sangha, the monastics, and then I was able to, get those things solved. So that's why it is very important to understand the Pali words and the Pali terms, and if one can study that language. I know the monastics, of course, they do study Pali, but we are lay people and we usually don't. So such errors or misunderstandings can occur because of that reason. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. It's true. There are various things that will be clearer if somebody studies Pali and is able to engage directly with the text, with the original, without having to translate it through like different translators' ideas about it. And there's not such a thing as any perfect translation, but the translations are still very helpful. And if there are questions, then it is suitable to ask somebody. If you can study yourself, then that's great. But even in the course of studying, then there's still questions and things that come up that will need explanation. And so yeah, these things are good to ask about, to ponder, to consider, and do our best to understand. The language is different. The way that they were living at that time is different, and just for us to try to put ourselves into that world, into that language, is helpful, because it helps to understand this thing. I think the truth of what the Buddha is saying is universal. It's not different. That hasn't changed. The Four Noble Truths are valid now and everywhere and for all time, for everyone.
Exactly.
But some of these other things can be hard to understand because of difference in language or difference in culture from the time the original teachings were given. And it doesn't mean the teachings are wrong, but it does mean that we need to do a little more work to understand what's being said, whether that's through our own study, which is wonderful, as Janaki was mentioning, or through asking questions, as as Daniel was doing. And so this is why it's good to have Dhamma discussion, come together to ask these things, because it's not all completely clear and obvious. Yeah.
Sad.
All right, so moving on. Sariputta has consented by silence. And then in the morning he gets up and takes his bowl and robe and goes with Venerable Ananda to Anathapindika's home. He sits down on the seat spread out and he speaks to Anathapindika. I hope you're keeping well, householder. I hope you're all right. And I hope the pain is fading, not growing. That its fading is evident, not its growing. So this is a traditional thing to say when you go to see somebody. We see this in multiple suttas that they say something like this. And it's just basic courtesy, right? Very human. He doesn't say, I hope they're not engaging on the level of deep Dhamma, of emptiness or something here. It's just like, I hope you're well. But this is a very human Dhamma to go and speak this way. I hope you're well. I hope your pain is fading, not growing. I hope the fading is evident, not its growing. But they know the answer could be no. And in this case, Anathapindika says, I'm not keeping well, Honorable Sariputta. I'm not getting by. The pain is terrible and growing, not fading. It's growing, not its fading is evident. And he explains just how terrible it is. He says, the winds piercing my head are so severe, it feels like a strong man drilling into my head with a sharp point. Feels like a strong man tightening a strong leather strap around my head. The winds slicing my belly are so severe, like a deft butcher or their apprentice were slicing open a cow's belly with a sharp meat cleaver. The burning in my body is so severe, it feels like two strong men grabbing a weaker man by the arms to burn and scorch him on a pit of glowing coals. That's how severe the burning is in my body. I'm not keeping well, Honorable Sariputta. I'm not getting by. The pain is terrible and growing, not fading. It's growing, not its fading is evident. So that's very strong. He's really in a terrible state. And we see why does he need somebody to come to him? He's a wealthy man. He probably already has a doctor, probably already has somebody who's trying to help with the pain, but this is why he's called Sariputta, is that at such a time we need support. So Sariputta says to him, that's why, householder, you should train like this. I shall not grasp the I, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the I. That's how you should train. So Venerable Sariputta is jumping straight into it. This is Bhante Suchata's footnote here. He says, the teaching on the six senses typically begins by establishing awareness on the reality of the I, etc., as something that is grasped at. And in other suttas, they start at that sort of more basic level of just awareness of the I. But here Sariputta skips over this straight to letting go, signifying that his teaching starts with an advanced level of insight. So he's teaching to somebody who already knows what is the I and what is awareness of the I. And he's saying, just let it go. Don't grasp after that. If there's terrible pain there, just let it go. There'll be no consciousness of mind dependent on the I. That's how you should train. You should train like this. I shall not grasp the ear, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the ear. I shall not grasp the nose, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the nose. I shall not grasp the tongue, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the tongue. I shall not grasp the body, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the body. I shall not grasp the mind, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the mind. So these six physical and one mental sense base here. Just letting go completely, not making the consciousness dependent on it. That's how you should train. These are the internal sense bases. You should also not grasp what is external. You should not grasp sight. There shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on sight. I shall not grasp sound, smell, taste, touch, or ideas, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on ideas. That's how you should train. It goes on. Not only those physical things and the external things, it's also the consciousness that connects those and makes contact. I shall not grasp eye consciousness. There shall be no consciousness of mind depending on eye consciousness. I shall not grasp ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, or mind consciousness. There shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on mind consciousness. That's how you should train. It goes on. I shall not grasp eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, mind contact. There shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on mind contact. Feeling. I shall not grasp feeling born of eye contact, whether pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Feeling born of ear contact, feeling born of nose contact, feeling born of tongue contact, feeling born of body contact. And there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the feeling born of mind contact. So, this is a high bar. He's been saying just how painful the body contact is, just how strong and intense. And the teaching is, I shall not grasp at that. There shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the feeling born of body contact or mind contact. I shall not grasp the earth element, the water element, the fire element, the air element, the space element, or the consciousness element. There shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the consciousness element. I shall not grasp form, feeling, perception, choices, or consciousness. There shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on them. So, giving up the sense bases, giving up contact, giving up feeling, giving up the aggregates, not grasping after any of them, not making consciousness dependent on any of them. And going on. Here we're getting into the formless realms. Having given up form, still no grasping. I shall not grasp the dimension of infinite space, the dimension of infinite consciousness, the dimension of nothingness, the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. And there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. So these are all sort of the experiences, all the things that one makes a life out of. And he's saying, don't grasp. Shall not grasp any of these things. And I think at the time of death, we want to grasp. We feel like going down the drains, sort of slipping away, and you want to hang on to something, right? Saying none of these things are something you can hang on to. You should train like this. I shall not grasp this world, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on this world. I shall not grasp the other world, that is where you're going next, the next birth. I shall not grasp the other world, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the other world. You should train like this. I shall not grasp whatever is seen, heard, thought, known, attained, sought, and explored by my mind, and my consciousness will not have that as support. That's how you should train. When he said this, Anathapindika cried and burst out in tears. Venerable Ananda said to him, "Are you failing, householder? Are you fading, householder?" "No, Honorable Ananda, but for a long time I have paid homage to the Buddha and the esteemed mendicants, yet I have never before heard such a Dhamma talk." Ananda says, "Householder, such Dhamma talk does not strike when teaching white-clothed lay people." Bhante Sujato has a note here. He says the verb here is patipati, the spontaneous striking of inspiration. Sariputta is not saying such talks are never given, but that such talks are not what comes to mind usually when teaching lay people. Rather, it strikes when teaching those going forth. And Anathapindika says, well then, Honorable Sariputta, let such Dhamma talks strike when teaching white-clothed lay people as well. There are gentlemen with little dust in their eyes, they're in decline because they haven't heard the teaching. There will be those who understand the teaching. So he's understood something. And when the Venerables Sariputta and Ananda had given the householder Anathapindika this advice, they got up from their seats and left. Not long after they had left, Anathapindika passed away and was reborn in the host of joyful gods. So he's not gone all the way to become Arahant, but he's gone to a very good place. Then late at night, the glorious godling Anathapindika, lighting up the entire Jeta's grove, went up to the Buddha, bowed, stood to one side, and addressed the Buddha in verse. This indeed is that Jeta's grove, frequented by the Sangha of seers, where the king of Dhamma stayed. It brings me joy. Deeds, knowledge and principle, ethical conduct, and excellent livelihood, by these are mortals purified, not by clan or wealth. That's why an astute person, seeing what's good for themselves, would examine the teaching rationally, and thus be purified in it. Sariputta is full of wisdom, ethics, and peace. Even a mendicant who has crossed over might at best equal him. That is what the godling Anathapindika said, and the teacher approved. He pays his respects to the Buddha. The Buddha tells the mendicants what happened. And Venerable Ananda says to the Buddha, oh, surely that must have been Anathapindika, for Anathapindika was devoted to Venerable Sariputta. And the Buddha confirms. He says, good, Ananda, you've reached the logical conclusion as far as logic goes. So he knows that Ananda is not knowing this through psychic powers, but just reasoning it out. It's clear enough. So that indeed was the godling Anathapindika. That is what the Buddha said, and satisfied the Venerable Ananda approved, the Buddha said. So this is what Anathapindika needed to hear at that time when he was in such terrible pain. And it brought him comfort, and it brought him joy, and it brought him to the host of the joyful gods. You know, it seems he was not able to practice with it 100% at that time. If you're fully not grasping any of that, then that would be full nibbana. But he knew, and he had faith, and he had inspiration and joy from knowing this, and asked, please tell us this. Please don't hide this from us. This is what we need to hear, even the white-clothed lay people. So, well, we're coming towards the end of our time here, which is why I wanted to just sort of get through all of that a little bit quickly. Are there any final comments? Final anything? Daniel, yes.
No, yeah. The ending where he says, you know, well, may it strike white-clothed lay people too. There are some of us without dust in our eyes. You should. It felt reminiscent of sort of what Brahma said to Buddha at his enlightenment, some to the tune of, don't give up on the world. There are still people who can get this. And it seemed to echo that almost.
Yeah, it is the same words, that there are those with little dust in their eyes. There are those who can understand. And that is why it's worth teaching. And the Buddha himself was doubtful about it at the beginning. Was there anyone who would understand? But there was, and there still is, and we're still benefiting from the fact that he chose to teach. And so, anyway, that was what I wanted to share with you for today, for the end of our Death Awareness Month. These are some reflections for you for now. And now that you've heard it, maybe when the time of death comes, may it be good, may it be helpful, may the Buddha's words and the words of the Arahants carry forward and be a blessing to you and to me, to all of us. I hope that these things come to mind when I'm passing away myself, and I hope for you as well. I think they are probably the best thing for
Thank
one
you,
who's
Rami.
prepared and ready to hear them. So, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu.
So we can close right now by paying our respects to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and then I'm going to take just a couple minutes break, and then we're going to come back for our final, and nobody is required to come back, but we're going to have funeral chanting and blessing chanting to close out our Death Awareness Month. And you are all very welcome to join us for that. And we'll close this. I'll take about a 5-minute break and then be back ready for that.
Yes, you're not chanting.
Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagawa Buddhang Bhagawantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your patient listening. And those who want to stick around for the chanting, I'll see you in about 5 minutes.
That's